The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a deep, resonant sound filled the chamber. The glow of the heart intensified, and a holographic interface emerged, displaying complex patterns that Lena struggled to interpret. Above them, the Devourer's tendrils pierced deeper into the planet, its form growing larger and more defined. The ship's scanners reported catastrophic energy loss across the surface. "Captain, we're running out of time," one of the engineers shouted. Elis pressed her comms. "Erebus, report." "Captain," came the voice of the communications officer, "the Devourer is extending its reach toward orbit. It's attempting to disrupt our systems. If we lose the ship—" "We won't," Elis snapped. "Lena, how close are we?" Lena's fingers danced across the holographic console. "Almost there. But, Captain, this weapon isn't just a tool. It's alive. It's reacting to our intent." "What does that mean?" Elis asked sharply. Lena looked up, her eyes wide. "It means the weapon needs a guiding force. A consciousness. It needs a sacrifice." The words hit the team like a physical blow. Elis's jaw tightened. "Who?" "One of us." Lena shook her head. "Not one of us. It's designed for the Thiller. Their essence is encoded in its design. Without one of them to guide it, the weapon won't activate." As if in response to her words, the ancient Thaler figure appeared once again, a shimmering projection in the heart's chamber. Its voice was calm but firm. "I will guide it." "But you'll—" Lena began, her voice cracking. "I will end," the Thaler said simply. "As will my kind. But our end was written long ago. Yours need not be." The projection moved toward the heart, its form merging with the crystalline structure. The chamber erupted in light, and the weapon began to hum with power. "Lena, what's happening?" Elis shouted over the rising noise. "It's stabilizing." Lena cried. "It's channeling the planet's energy. The Devourer's link is weakening." Above them, the Devourer roared, a deep, guttural sound that shook the planet. Tendrils of shadow flailed, retreating from the crystalline network. The massive form began to shrink, its connection to the planet severed. The chamber shook violently, and Elis shouted, "Everyone back to the shuttle. Now." As the team scrambled to escape, the Thaler's final words echoed in the chamber. "Go, travelers. Carry our memory and protect the stars." The heart of the Thaler blazed with light, and the Devourer's form dissolved into nothingness. The gamble had paid off, or so they thought. The first encounter. The Erebus floated silently in orbit, its hull still gleaming against the emerald remnants of the alien world below. The planet's once pulsing lights were dim, but the crystalline structures had begun to stabilize, signaling that the gamble with the heart of the Thaler had succeeded. Yet on the bridge, Captain Elis Carter's tension hadn't eased. "Status report," Elis demanded. Lieutenant Harris scanned his console. The Devourer's presence has dissipated. No remaining energy traces detected, but something else is happening. "Define something else," Elis said sharply. Harris hesitated, his hands flying over the controls. "It's a fleet, Captain. A massive one. They're exiting warp on the far side of the system." Elis's stomach dropped. "Are they hostile?" "No idea," but Harris trailed off, staring at his screen. "They're ships. They're not like anything we've seen before. They're organic." The screen flickered, and the ship's eye spoke. Incoming transmission from the approaching fleet. On screen, Elis ordered, standing tall. The image that appeared on the display silenced the entire bridge. A creature with a semi-translucent, jelly-like form floated before them. Its surface shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid rainbows, and it had no visible mouth or eyes. Yet, a deep, resonant voice filled the room. "Humans," the entity said, "we sensed your interference." Elis's fists clenched at her sides. "This is Captain Elis Carter of the Erebus. We mean no harm. We acted to contain a threat that endangered your system and ours." The creature tilted, as if considering her words. The threat you speak of was ours to monitor. Your interference has disrupted an ancient balance. Ancient balance, Elise repeated, her tone sharp. The devourer was consuming your planet. You call that balance. The creature's surface darkened momentarily, like a storm cloud. The entity you call the devourer was not a threat to us, but a tool. The bridge erupted in murmurs. Elise raised a hand, silencing her crew. A tool. It was destroying the planet. The creature's colors swirled, reflecting shades of red and orange. Anger, perhaps. The energy you perceived as destruction was being channeled to sustain our fleet. The fiddler attempted to resist our arrangement, and they failed. You have now interfered with a cycle that has spanned millennia. Arrival of the gigantic ship. The massive spaceship Erebus glided through the darkness of space, its colossal form dwarfing the small moons of the uncharted alien planet below. Its reflective hull gleamed as it caught the light of a nearby star, casting a shadow on the world they had come to explore. It was humanity's most advanced vessel, the result of decades of effort and the dreams of countless generations. On the bridge of the ship, Captain Elise Carter stood with her arms crossed, staring at the screen in front of her. The planet below was unlike anything she had imagined. Green clouds swirled across its atmosphere, and streaks of glowing light pulsed along its surface like veins in a living creature. The sight sent a shiver down her spine, though she would never admit it to her crew. "Captain, we're in orbit," said Lieutenant Harris, his voice steady but tinged with awe. "Preliminary scans show high levels of energy activity. It's like the entire planet is alive." Elise nodded, her face calm, but her mind racing. Humanity had reached out to the stars many times before, but this was different. This was the first time they had found signs of intelligent life on an alien world. Every protocol, every decision, would be recorded and analyzed by the people back on Earth. The weight of responsibility sat heavily on her shoulders. "Prepare the communications array," Elise ordered. "Let's see if anyone down there is willing to talk." The crew moved quickly, each person focused on their tasks. The hum of the ship's systems filled the room, and the faint vibration of its engines was a constant reminder of the power at their disposal. The Erebus was not only a scientific vessel, but also a fortress, armed with defenses capable of withstanding almost any threat. Still, Elise hoped they wouldn't need them. As the communications officer worked, the science team continued their analysis of the planet. Dr. Lena Morales, the chief scientist, approached the captain with a tablet in hand. Her dark eyes sparkled with excitement, though her expression remained professional. "Captain, the energy readings from the surface are extraordinary," Lena said. "We've detected structures, large ones. They seem to be made of some kind of crystal that channels energy. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Elise raised an eyebrow. "Are they natural formations or artificial?" "Definitely artificial," Lena replied. "But there's more. The patterns of energy suggest they're still active. Whatever civilization built them, it might not be extinct." The captain's stomach tightened. This was what they had hoped for, but now that the moment had come, it felt overwhelming. Humanity was finally on the brink of meeting an alien species, and there was no telling how they would react. "Keep scanning," Elise said. "I want to know everything we can about the surface before we send a team down there." Just then, the ship's speakers crackled to life. "Captain, we're picking up a signal from the planet," said the communications officer. "It's faint, but it's definitely directed at us." Elise's heart skipped a beat. "Put it on speakers." The bridge fell silent as a strange sound filled the room. It was a mix of tones and patterns, almost like a melody, but with an underlying rhythm that suggested purpose. The sound was haunting and beautiful, like a song sung by the stars themselves. "Is it a language?" Elise asked. "It's hard to say," the officer replied. "It doesn't match any known patterns, but it feels deliberate. It's almost as if they're inviting us." The captain exchanged a glance with Lena, who shrugged. "It could be a welcome," Lena said, "or it could be a warning." Elise frowned. There was no way to know for sure, But they couldn't turn back now. Humanity had come too far to let fear stop them. "Send a response," Elise said. "Something simple. Let's show them we're here to communicate, not to fight." The communications officer nodded and began transmitting a carefully crafted signal. It was a sequence of tones and pulses, designed to be as universal as possible. The crew waited in tense silence, their eyes fixed on the screen. Moments later, the planet responded. The signal was louder this time, more structured. A pattern began to emerge, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Lena's fingers flew over her tablet as she worked to decipher the message. "It's coordinates," she said after a moment. "They're directing us to a location on the surface." Elisa's jaw tightened. The invitation was clear, but it came with risks. If the aliens wanted to communicate, why not do so from orbit? Why lead them to the surface? It could be a trap, or it could be the beginning of a historic alliance. "We'll send a team," Elise said finally. "Prepare the shuttle and assemble the first contact crew. Dr. Morales, you're coming with me." "Yes, Captain," Lena said, her voice steady despite the excitement in her eyes. The Thaler tilted its head. "At the planet's core lies a weapon we forged, a weapon fueled by the life of our people. It can end the Devourer, but it will also destroy this world and all it sustains." Lena stepped forward, her expression conflicted. "If we destroy the planet, the Thaler legacy will be lost forever. Are there no other options?" The Thaler's gaze darkened. "You hesitate as we did. That hesitation doomed us. Do not let it doom your kind as well." The image flickered and vanished, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Elisa's mind raced. The weight of the decision was crushing. Destroying the planet might save countless other worlds, but it would erase an entire civilization's history, a history meant to guide humanity. "Captain, the Devourer is expanding its reach," the communications officer said. "If we're going to act, it has to be now." Elise stood tall, her jaw set. "Prepare the ship for immediate evacuation protocols. Dr. Morales, find a way to access that weapon. We'll make the call when we're ready." As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Elise stared at the screen, where the Devourer loomed like a nightmare made real. The fate of the Thaler, and perhaps the galaxy, now rested in humanity's hands, and she wasn't sure they were ready. The aliens' warning. Deep within the Erebus, the atmosphere was electric with urgency. Dr. Lena Morales led a team of engineers and scientists, their faces pale as they worked on decoding the ancient Thaler weapon schematics retrieved from the obelisk shard. Every moment felt like a century as the massive shadow of the Devourer loomed over the planet, devouring its energy with terrifying efficiency. On the bridge, Captain Elise Carter stared at the display of the monstrosity. Its coiling, shadowy form stretched for miles, its tendrils reaching into the planet's surface like parasitic roots. Each movement seemed to siphon the life out of the world below. The glowing rivers dimmed, the crystalline spires cracked, and the once vibrant planet now looked like a dying ember. A sudden chime pulled Elise's attention to her communications officer. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the planetary core." Elise motioned to the screen. "Put it through." The same ancient Thaler figure appeared, its luminous eyes dimmer than before. This time, its posture betrayed a sense of exhaustion. "You hesitate still, travelers," it said. "The Devourer consumes what remains. Soon, it will break free of this prison and spread across the stars." Elise crossed her arms. "We've heard your warning, but destroying an entire planet isn't a decision we make lightly. There must be another way." The Thaler's gaze hardened. "There is no alternative. We used all our knowledge, all our strength, to forge this trap. It was not enough. You have seen its hunger. Do you believe your kind can resist it? As we could not." Lena entered the bridge at that moment, tablet in hand. "Captain, I found something. The weapon, it doesn't just destroy. It channels. The energy it releases can be repurposed." "Repurposed for what?" Elise asked, her brow furrowing. Lena hesitated. It could obliterate the devourer completely, or it could ignite a chain reaction that stabilizes the planet's core. But we don't have enough data to predict the outcome. The Thaler on the screen tilted its head, its expression unreadable. The weapon was meant to save us, it said. But we were too late. You are not. Choose wisely. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Elise turned to Lena. What's the risk of using the weapon to stabilize the planet instead of destroying it? Lena looked grim. If it fails, the planet won't just collapse. It'll scatter debris and energy across the system. The devourer will have the fuel it needs to expand faster than we can track. And if it works? Lena's eyes glimmered with faint hope. The devourer could be trapped permanently. The planet would recover, and the Thaler's legacy would remain intact. Elise clenched her fists. It was a gamble with impossible stakes. In the planetary core, the Erebus team descended into the depths. A small shuttle carried Elise, Lena, and a squad of engineers into the massive subterranean chamber. The scale of the facility was overwhelming. Towering pillars of light hummed softly, and streams of glowing liquid flowed through channels etched with alien symbols. At the center of it all stood the weapon, a towering crystalline structure, its surface carved with intricate designs that pulsed with energy. It was as if the Thaler's entire civilization had poured their essence into this one creation. Captain, Lena said, her voice hushed with awe. This is it, the heart of the Thaler. As they approached, the crystalline structure began to shift, revealing a console with strange fluid-like symbols. Lena stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. Give me a moment. I'll try to activate it. Before Elise could respond, the light around them dimmed, and the figure began to fade. Take what you learn here, it said. The fate of your kind, and others, may depend on it. The image vanished, leaving the team standing in silence. The obelisk's glow dimmed, and the vibrations stopped. For a moment, the only sound was the wind whistling through the crystalline spires. What just happened? Harris muttered. We're not alone, Elise said, her voice filled with resolve. And whatever trial they faced, it might not be over. As the team turned back to the shuttle, a faint rumble echoed in the distance. The ground beneath the plaza trembled, and a crack of light split the horizon. Something was stirring, something ancient and powerful, and they had just awakened it. The hidden truth. The shuttle raced back to the Erebus as the distant horizon continued to fracture with lines of glowing light. From orbit, the planet appeared serene, but the crew on the ground knew better. Something had awakened, a force tied to the obelisk's cryptic message. Back on the ship, Captain Elise Carter paced the bridge, her mind racing through possibilities. The words of the translucent figure echoed in her thoughts. Your kind was chosen. It wasn't a comforting sentiment. Humanity had barely survived its own trials. Now they were expected to face something alien and ancient. Dr. Lena Morales entered the bridge, a determined expression on her face. She carried a small crystalline shard, carefully secured in a container. Captain, you need to see this. What is it? Elise asked, her curiosity piqued. It's a fragment from the obelisk, Lena explained. I took a sample before we left. The structure isn't just a monument, it's a storage device. This shard alone contains an enormous amount of data, possibly records of the entire civilization. Elise leaned in, her eyes narrowing. Have you decoded any of it? Lena hesitated. Only fragments. Most of it is encrypted in ways we can't begin to understand, but there's one file I managed to open. It's a warning. Of what? Elise demanded. Lena took a deep breath. An entity. The Thaler called it the Devourer. It's not a species or an army. It's more like a force of nature. Wherever it goes, it drains life and energy, leaving worlds barren. The Thaler tried to stop it, but they failed. Elise's stomach dropped. And now it's coming here. I don't think it ever left, Lena said grimly. The energy network across the planet. The glowing crystals, the rivers of liquid light. It was their attempt to trap the devourer. But it wasn't enough. That's why they created those recordings. They believed someone, someday, might succeed where they failed. Before Elise could respond, the ship's alarm blared, and the communications officer called out, "Captain, we're picking up a massive energy surge from the planet's surface." On screen, Elise ordered. The main display lit up, showing the planet's surface splitting open. A chasm thousands of kilometers wide revealed a dark abyss, and from its depths emerged something massive. At first, it was shapeless, a swirling mass of shadows and glowing veins of energy. But as it rose, it began to take form, an enormous, serpentine figure, its body coiling like living smoke. Its many eyes glowed a haunting red, and its presence seemed to drain the light from the atmosphere. "That can't be real," Harris whispered, his voice trembling. "It's real," Elise said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. "And it looks like we just met the devourer." The creature floated above the planet's surface, its movements slow and deliberate. Tendrils of shadow reached out, connecting to the glowing crystal structures. The once brilliant light of the planet began to dim, as if the life was being siphoned away. "Captain, it's feeding," Lena said, her voice shaking. "It's using the planet's energy to grow stronger." Elise clenched her fists. "We need options. Can we disrupt the energy network?" "Maybe, but it's risky," Lena said. "The network is the only thing keeping the devourer contained. If we destroy it, we might free it entirely." Before Elise could reply, a new alert flashed across the console. The ship's AI spoke in its calm, mechanical tone. "Incoming signal detected. Origin, deep planetary core." Elise frowned. "Another signal. Put it through." The screen shifted, displaying an ancient control room deep beneath the planet's surface. At its center stood a figure, not holographic, but real. It was one of the Thriller, its shimmering skin dimmed with age. Despite its frailty, its voice was strong. "Travelers," it said, "you have awakened the prison. Now you must make a choice. Seal the devourer again, or destroy it forever." "How do we destroy it?" Elise asked urgently. As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Elise took one last look at the planet below. The glowing lights on its surface seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat, as if the planet itself was alive and waiting for them. "Let's hope we're ready for this," Elise muttered under her breath. The story of humanity's first contact with an alien world was about to begin, and no one aboard the Erebus would ever forget what happened next. Mysterious planetary surface. The shuttle descended from the Erebus, slicing through the planet's emerald atmosphere with a quiet hum. Captain Elise Carter sat at the front, her eyes scanning the landscape below. Beside her, Dr. Lena Morales clutched a tablet, her fingers dancing over its surface as she recorded the stunning visuals. The rest of the first contact team sat silently, their excitement tempered by the unknown. The surface of the planet was mesmerizing. Towering crystalline spires shimmered in hues of blue and violet, their forms impossibly symmetrical. Rivers of liquid silver snaked through valleys, reflecting the green-tinted sky. Strange flora sprouted from the ground, plants that glowed faintly, as if feeding on the very energy of the planet itself. "Lena, are you getting all this?" Elise asked, her voice low and filled with awe. "I'm recording everything," Lena replied. "This planet's ecosystem is beyond anything we've imagined." The crystals seemed to be channeling energy into the environment, like a network of veins. The shuttle's autopilot beeped, signaling their approach to the coordinates. The landing site appeared ahead, a vast, open plaza made of smooth black stone. At its center stood a massive obelisk, carved with intricate symbols that glowed faintly. The area was silent, devoid of movement. "Looks like the welcome mat is out," quipped Lieutenant Harris, who was manning the shuttle's controls. His attempt at humor didn't ease the tension. "Set us down carefully," Elise ordered, "and keep the engines warm. We might need to leave in a hurry. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and the team stepped out onto the plaza. The air was crisp and cool, carrying a faint metallic tang. Alyssa's boots echoed as they touched the smooth surface. She looked around, her hand resting on the small weapon holstered at her side. Though they came in peace, she wasn't about to take chances. "Captain," Lena said, pointing at the obelisk. "Look at the carvings. They're moving." Elise turned to see that the glowing symbols on the obelisk were indeed shifting, rearranging themselves in fluid patterns. The sight was both mesmerizing and unsettling. "Is it reacting to us?" Elise asked. "Maybe," Lena said, stepping closer. "It could be some form of language or technology we've never seen." As the team approached the obelisk, a sudden hum filled the air. The symbols began to pulse in rhythm, their glow intensifying. The ground beneath them vibrated slightly, as if the planet itself was waking up. "Stay sharp," Elise said, her hand tightening on her weapon. "We don't know what's coming." The humming grew louder, and a beam of light shot out from the obelisk, projecting an image into the air. The team froze as a translucent figure appeared, a humanoid form with elongated limbs, shimmering skin, and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. "Welcome," the figure said in perfect English, its voice soft yet commanding. "You have come far, travelers of the stars." The crew exchanged stunned glances. Elise stepped forward, keeping her tone calm. "We are from Earth, representing humanity. We come in peace and seek to learn about your world." The figure tilted its head, as if considering her words. "You are not the first of your kind to stand here," it said. Lena's eyes widened. "Not the first? What do you mean?" The figure raised a hand, and the plaza around them changed. The black stone beneath their feet turned transparent, revealing a sprawling city below. Structures made of the same glowing crystal, connected by bridges of light. But the city was abandoned, its streets empty, its buildings crumbling. "Our civilization once thrived," the figure continued, "but we faced a great trial. The energy you see, our lifeblood, was our salvation and our undoing." The team watched in silence as the image shifted, showing scenes of the alien city alive with activity. Beings similar to the figure moved through the streets, their forms radiant and graceful. Then the scene darkened. Cracks formed in the crystals, and the light began to fade. A shadow loomed over the city, a massive, indescribable shape that sent chills down their spines. "We prepared for this moment," the figure said. "You were chosen to carry forward what remains of our legacy." "Chosen?" Elise asked, her voice sharp. "Why us?" The figure's gaze seemed to pierce her soul. "Because your kind holds the strength to endure, the will to fight, and the heart to preserve what is precious." The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a deep, resonant sound filled the chamber. The glow of the heart intensified, and a holographic interface emerged, displaying complex patterns that Lena struggled to interpret. Above them, the Devourer's tendrils pierced deeper into the planet, its form growing larger and more defined. The ship's scanners reported catastrophic energy loss across the surface. "Captain, we're running out of time," one of the engineers shouted. Elise pressed her comms. "Erebus, report." "Captain," came the voice of the communications officer, "the Devourer is extending its reach toward orbit. It's attempting to disrupt our systems. If we lose the ship—" "We won't," Elise snapped. "Lena, how close are we?" Lena's fingers danced across the holographic console. "Almost there. But, Captain, this weapon isn't just a tool. It's alive. It's reacting to our intent." "What does that mean?" Elise asked sharply. Lena looked up, her eyes wide. "It means the weapon needs a guiding force, a consciousness. It needs a sacrifice." The words hit the team like a physical blow. Elise's jaw tightened. "Who?" "One of us." Lena shook her head. "Not one of us. It's designed for the Thriller. Their essence is encoded in its design. Without one of them to guide it, the weapon won't activate. As if in response to her words, the ancient Thaler figure appeared once again, a shimmering projection in the heart's chamber. Its voice was calm but firm. "I will guide it." "But you'll," Lena began, her voice cracking. "I will end," the Thaler said simply. "As will my kind. But our end was written long ago. Yours need not be." The projection moved toward the heart, its form merging with the crystalline structure. The chamber erupted in light, and the weapon began to hum with power. "Lena, what's happening?" Elise shouted over the rising noise. "It's stabilizing," Lena cried. "It's channeling the planet's energy. The Devourer's link is weakening." Above them, the Devourer roared, a deep, guttural sound that shook the planet. Tendrils of shadow flailed, retreating from the crystalline network. The massive form began to shrink, its connection to the planet severed. The chamber shook violently, and Elise shouted, "Everyone back to the shuttle. Now." As the team scrambled to escape, the Thaler's final words echoed in the chamber. "Go, travelers. Carry our memory and protect the stars." The heart of the Thaler blazed with light, and the Devourer's form dissolved into nothingness. The gamble had paid off, or so they thought. The first encounter. The Erebus floated silently in orbit, its hull still gleaming against the emerald remnants of the alien world below. The planet's once pulsing lights were dim, but the crystalline structures had begun to stabilize, signaling that the gamble with the heart of the Thaler had succeeded. Yet on the bridge, Captain Elise Carter's tension hadn't eased. "Status report," Elise demanded. Lieutenant Harris scanned his console. "The Devourer's presence has dissipated. No remaining energy traces detected, but something else is happening." "Define something else," Elise said sharply. Harris hesitated, his hands flying over the controls. "It's a fleet, Captain. A massive one. They're exiting warp on the far side of the system." Elise's stomach dropped. "Are they hostile?" "No idea," but Harris trailed off, staring at his screen. "They're ships. They're not like anything we've seen before. They're organic." The screen flickered, and the ship's eye spoke. Incoming transmission from the approaching fleet. On screen, Elise ordered, standing tall. The image that appeared on the display silenced the entire bridge. A creature with a semi-translucent, jelly-like form floated before them. Its surface shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid rainbows, and it had no visible mouth or eyes. Yet, a deep, resonant voice filled the room. "Humans," the entity said, "we sensed your interference." Elise's fists clenched at her sides. "This is Captain Elise Carter of the Erebus. We mean no harm. We acted to contain a threat that endangered your system and ours." The creature tilted, as if considering her words. "The threat you speak of was ours to monitor. Your interference has disrupted an ancient balance." "Ancient balance," Elise repeated, her tone sharp. "The Devourer was consuming your planet. You call that balance." The creature's surface darkened momentarily, like a storm cloud. "The entity you call the Devourer was not a threat to us, but a tool." The bridge erupted in murmurs. Elise raised a hand, silencing her crew. A tool. It was destroying the planet. The creature's colors swirled, reflecting shades of red and orange. Anger, perhaps. The energy you perceived as destruction was being channeled to sustain our fleet. The Thaler attempted to resist our arrangement, and they failed. You have now interfered with a cycle that has spanned millennia. Lena, who had been quietly listening at the back of the bridge, stepped forward. "You're saying you used the Devourer to power your civilization." The entity's colors shifted to a pale green. "Correct. Its consumption of planetary energy provided us with the resources we require to expand and thrive. By destroying its connection, you have endangered not only this system, but others reliant on the cycle." Elise's mind raced. This wasn't a simple case of good versus evil. She had assumed the Devourer was a mindless force, a threat to be neutralized. Now it seemed like humanity had stumbled into a much larger web of intergalactic politics, "Why didn't you stop us?" Elise asked, her voice firm. "You had to know we were on the surface." The creature's colors dimmed. "You were not seen as a threat until it was too late. Humanity is new, unpredictable." The statement hung in the air. Elise's jaw tightened. "So what now?" The creature's form twisted slightly, a ripple of purples and blues spreading across its surface. "You have two options. Leave this system and never return, or submit yourselves to our judgment. Your actions cannot go unpunished." Elise's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "And if we refuse?" The creature's colors flared to a bright red. "Then your species will be added to the list of those who tried and failed to challenge the balance." "Captain," Harris interrupted, his voice urgent. "Their ships are moving into attack formation." Elise turned back to the screen, her resolve hardening. "We didn't come here to start a war, but we won't back down from one either." She turned to Lena. "Do we still have any data from the Thaler weapon?" Lena nodded quickly. "I downloaded fragments before we left. It might give us a tactical advantage, but it's incomplete." "Then let's make it work," Elise said. "Harris, prepare the ship for combat. I want all defensive systems online." As the crew scrambled to their stations, Elise faced the entity on the screen one last time. "You call this balance, but to us, it's tyranny. If your cycle depends on destroying worlds, then humanity can't let it continue." The creature's form darkened entirely, its voice booming. "Then you have chosen annihilation." The transmission ended abruptly, and the enemy fleet began its advance. The Erebus shuddered as its systems powered up, the ship's shields flaring to life. "Captain," Lena said, her voice tight, "if we can tap into the Thaler weapons data, we might be able to create a disruption field. It could weaken their organic ships long enough for us to hold our ground." "Do it," Elise ordered. "Harris, bring us into a defensive position. We're not going down without a fight." The first wave of alien ships closed in, their strange, pulsating hulls glowing with energy. The Erebus fired its opening salvo, plasma beams tearing through the void. The enemy fleet retaliated, their weapons unlike anything humanity had faced before. Arcs of energy that bent and twisted, seeking out weak points in the Erebus's shields. As the battle began, Elise felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer just about survival. This was about proving that humanity could stand against even the most ancient and powerful forces in the galaxy. And they wouldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. Humanity's resolve. The Erebus was a fortress in the void, but the alien fleet bore down on it like an unrelenting tide. Elise stood on the bridge, her knuckles white. As she gripped the railing, the ship shook violently as another volley from the alien fleet struck their shields, sending sparks flying from overloaded systems. "Status report," Elise barked. Harris's voice was grim. "Shields are holding at 42%, but their attacks are bypassing our standard defenses. They're adapting." Lena rushed onto the bridge, tablet in hand, her face flushed with urgency. "Captain, I've managed to decode part of the Thaler weapons data. It includes a resonance algorithm, a way to destabilize the energy fields of their ships." "How fast can we implement it?" Elise asked, her eyes narrowing. "I can upload it to our weapons system," Lena replied. "But there's a catch. It requires us to emit a continuous pulse while staying within a specific range of the enemy fleet. It'll leave us vulnerable for at least 5 minutes. 5 minutes. In the chaos of the battle, it might as well have been an eternity. But it was their only shot." Elise turned to Harris. "Plot a course to their center. We'll use the pulse to break their formation." Harris's eyes widened. "You want us to charge into the fleet?" "Do it," Elise commanded. "If we don't take this risk, we're finished." The Erebus shifted course, engines roaring as it plunged toward the heart of the alien armada. The enemy ships reacted instantly, closing ranks and unleashing a torrent of organic projectiles that screamed through the void. The Erebus's shields flared under the strain, each impact bringing them closer to collapse. "Hold the line," Elise shouted. "We're not done yet." Lena worked frantically at her station, her fingers flying over the console. "Resonance pulse is ready. Activating. Now." The Erebus emitted a deep, resonant hum that rippled through the void. The alien ships hesitated, their movements faltering as the pulse disrupted their energy fields. The glowing, organic hulls of the nearest ships flickered and dimmed, their weapons sputtering out. "It's working," Lena cried. "Their systems are destabilizing. Fire all weapons," Elise ordered. The Erebus unleashed a barrage of plasma and kinetic rounds, tearing through the weakened enemy ships. Explosions lit up the darkness as one vessel after another disintegrated. The alien fleet scrambled to adapt, but the resonance pulse continued to spread, disrupting their formation and throwing them into chaos. On the bridge, the tension began to ease. Harris allowed himself a small grin. "They're falling back, Captain. We've got them on the run." But before anyone could celebrate, the ship's AI issued a chilling warning. "Alert. Massive energy spike detected." Elise turned to the main screen, her heart sinking as a massive alien vessel emerged from the shadows. It dwarfed the other ships, its form pulsating with dark, otherworldly energy. Unlike the others, it seemed unaffected by the resonance pulse. "What is that?" Elise demanded. Lena's face paled. "It's their flagship, the core of their fleet. It must be directly tied to their power source." The massive ship opened its maw-like front, and a beam of concentrated energy shot toward the Erebus. The ship shuddered violently as the blast tore through its shields, disabling several systems in an instant. "Shields at 9%, Harris shouted. "We can't take another hit like that." Elise clenched her jaw. "We need to end this now." "Lena, is there any way to amplify the pulse?" Lena hesitated. "We'd have to redirect power from non-essential systems, life support, secondary defenses, everything. And even then, it might not be enough." "It has to be," Elise said firmly. "Do it." Lena nodded, her determination matching Elise's. She worked quickly, rerouting power and boosting the resonance pulse to its maximum output. The Erebus began to glow faintly, its hull resonating with the energy of the amplified pulse. As the pulse intensified, the smaller alien ships around them began to collapse, their forms disintegrating into bursts of light. The flagship, however, seemed to resist, its dark energy flaring as it fought against the disruption. "Captain," Lena said urgently, "the pulse isn't enough to destroy it outright. We need to target its core." "Where's the core?" Elise asked. Lena brought up a schematic of the alien flagship. "It's deep within the center, heavily shielded. We'd have to get close enough to deliver a focused strike." Elise nodded. "Then we'll do it ourselves. Harris, bring us in." The Erebus surged forward, engines straining as it closed the distance to the massive alien vessel. The flagship unleashed another barrage, but the Erebus weaved through the onslaught, its crew working with precision and determination. "Target locked," Harris reported. "We're in range." "Fire," Elise commanded. The Erebus unleashed a concentrated beam of energy, piercing through the flagship's outer hull. The ship shuddered violently as the beam struck its core, igniting a chain reaction. The massive vessel began to implode, its dark energy folding in on itself. The crew of the Erebus watched in awe as the flagship disintegrated, its destruction sending shockwaves through the remaining alien fleet. The surviving ships retreated, their once unified force now broken and scattered. On the bridge, Elise let out a slow breath. "Status." Harris grinned. "Enemy fleet is retreating." "We did it, Captain." Elise nodded, her expression softening. "Good work, everyone." As the Erebus drifted away from the battlefield, the crew knew they had achieved more than just survival. They had proven that humanity could stand against even the most ancient and powerful forces in the galaxy. But Elise couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, other threats were watching, and humanity would have to be ready. A new legacy. The Erebus drifted in silence above the now stabilized planet, its hull bearing the scars of battle. The bridge was quieter than usual, the crew reflecting on their narrow victory. Captain Elise Carter stood by the viewport, gazing down at the crystalline world below. The once fading lights of the planet's energy network were beginning to return, glowing faintly like embers reigniting after a storm. "It's beautiful," Lena Morel said quietly as she approached. She held a tablet filled with reams of data collected during their mission. "The Thaler weapon worked better than we expected. The energy network is repairing itself." "But the cost," Elise said, her voice heavy. "The Thaler are gone. The Devourer is destroyed. And now we've made enemies with the civilization that was using it." Lena nodded solemnly. "They'll come back, Captain. That fleet was only part of their strength." Elise turned to face her crew, her eyes sweeping across their tired but resolute faces. "We'll be ready." Hours later, a strange transmission reached the Erebus. It wasn't from the retreating alien fleet, nor was it from the planet itself. It was a message encoded in the faint resonance pulses emitted by the heart of the Thaler, hidden beneath the planet's surface. "Captain," Harris called from his station, "we've deciphered the message. It's a set of coordinates." Elise frowned. "Coordinates to where?" Lena, who had been analyzing the data, looked up with wide eyes. "It's not a where. It's a what. These coordinates are embedded in the resonance pattern of the planet. They're pointing to a map, the galactic map." The bridge fell silent as the implication sank in. Elise leaned forward. "Show me." The main display lit up, revealing a sprawling map of the galaxy, its stars connected by intricate lines of light. Several points on the map glowed brighter than the rest, forming a network that extended far beyond their current location. "These points," Lena said, her voice tinged with awe. "They're Thaler worlds, or at least what's left of them." Harris whistled softly. "Are you saying there could be more planets like this one? More weapons? More knowledge?" Lena nodded. "The Thaler didn't just leave one legacy. They scattered their creations across the galaxy. It's possible they were building a defense network, something to hold back forces like the Devourer." Elise straightened, her mind racing. "If these worlds are still out there, we need to find them. Humanity can't face what's coming alone." Harris hesitated. "Captain, do we have the resources to search for them? After everything we just went through, the Erebus." "We're not giving up," Elise interrupted, her voice firm. "If the Thaler believed we were worthy of their legacy, then we owe it to them, and to ourselves, to carry it forward." As preparations for departure began, the crew of the Erebus reflected on their journey, the battles they had fought, the discoveries they had made, and the sacrifices they had witnessed had changed them forever. The ship's scars were not just physical, they were a testament to humanity's resilience and determination to survive. Elise stood in the heart of the Thaler one final time. The crystalline chamber hummed softly, its glow steady and calm. Though the ancient Thaler being who had guided them was gone, its presence lingered in the air, a quiet reminder of the weight of their mission. "We'll honor your memory," Elise said softly, her voice echoing in the chamber. "And we'll make sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain." As she turned to leave, a faint pulse emanated from the heart, almost like a farewell. Elise smiled faintly and returned to the shuttle. The Erebus set its course for the first set of coordinates on the Thaler map, its engines roaring to life. The galaxy stretched out before them, vast and full of unknowns. But now, humanity had a direction and a purpose. In the quiet of space, the message left by the Thaler played one final time in Elise's mind. "You have been chosen, not because you are the strongest, but because you endure." And endure they would. Humanity's resolve, its unyielding spirit, had been forged in fire. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth was no longer a distant, isolated planet. Earth was now a player in the stars.